Whew. Hey, are you tired of eating frozen pizza? Because I'm not, but in this episode we're going to create a food recipe app so we can search for other foods rather than frozen pizzas and junk food. And as you can see right here, we have a search bar and we can search for whatever we want. We can get a banana recipe to make our lives a bit less miserable. So get ready, because we are going to practice our React skills in a real world project, and let's get tasty. Alrighty, let's create this food recipe app. So the first thing I did is I just ran the Create React app. So it's just an empty boilerplate of Create React app. So you can run that npx Create React app and you can give it a name. And this is what you get here. You can go into the source for now and we can just delete everything in the header. I'm just gonna get rid of everything in here. I'm gonna switch to React here, and I'm just gonna add a hello React for now, okay? Now we're gonna need to pull this information on these recipes from somewhere, right? React doesn't give us anything. So I found this API, it's called Edamame, and this gives us all the recipes. Now it's limited. We can only make, I don't know, like 10 requests per minute or something like that. It's free, which is good, but I just want you to let you know that you cannot just spam this and get as many requests as you want. You're gonna have to pay for that. But we're gonna keep everything for free for now. And the first thing we're gonna need from here, so if you go to Edamame, Jesus, they picked the best name ever. We're gonna have to go to this recipe search API down here. We're gonna hit sign up and just make an account. We can start on this developer mode, which is free, so we don't have to pay anything. You can start now, and it's gonna ask you to add a username and everything. So I'm just gonna go into mine. I'm gonna go here in the dashboard, and now let's see how we can get the actual request that we need to make for it. Well, the first thing actually is we have documentation here, which we can get the different kinds of requests we can make. But the first thing we need to get is the authentication. So they give you an actual key. So when you're making the request, they can check who's making that request. And if you have an account on Edamame, then everything is gonna work, because they're gonna kind of like check and authenticate you through that key. So where is that key? I forgot. I have no idea. So let's just go around here. Account, it's not here. Stats. I think I clicked on dashboard applications. Oh, here it is. Dashboard applications, and you're gonna get this recipe search API here, and you can view, and it's gonna give you the application ID and the application key. So the first thing we are gonna do in here is we're gonna actually delete everything, because this is an old kind of class component that we are not gonna be using anymore in React. So let's just delete this, and we can just create a const app, set it equal to an arrow function like so. And here we can return our React code, just as always. So there we go. And here we're gonna add a div with a class name. Make sure you use class name. Gonna add that app. And in here, I'm just gonna add that h1 back with hello React. Perfecto. So up here now, I'm actually gonna get these keys. Const, the first one is gonna be the app ID. So I'm gonna say app ID like this, all uppercase. I'm just gonna copy it from here and paste it down here. Now, if you're gonna use mine, it's not gonna work, because I'm gonna disable mine after this tutorial. So yeah, because it's probably not gonna work if like a lot of you are gonna make requests anyway, because they kind of block you. And I'm just gonna paste this code also in here. All right, so we have our authentication things. Now to make a request, we can actually go here to our API developer portal, and they give us an example. We can go to documentation and recipe search, all right? And they actually give you, if you scroll down here, a basic request that we can make. So here's one example, get request down here. I'm just gonna copy this whole link here. I'm gonna drag it in here and paste it in. So we're gonna make modifications to this, because this one is not gonna work. This is just an example. I'm gonna say example request, set this equal to, and paste this sucker in. And actually I don't need the strings, because they give us these strings. So what it says here is https API edmam.com search, and this Q here is the query, which basically means that whatever is after the query is the thing that you're searching for. So Q equal to chicken, it's gonna search for chicken. App ID is gonna be this app ID, so we have to put this in here. Perfect. Okay, so that makes sense. App key is gonna be the app key from here. All right, and here, whatever we have after from 0 to calories, this is just some extra search filters that you can add with this API. But for now, we don't need it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna delete everything from here all the way to the app key. All right, so all the way to the app key here. I'm just gonna delete everything. So this is what we have so far. Now I'm gonna make some changes to this. The first thing, I'm gonna use backticks, so not strings, so backticks. All right, the number next to your 1, backticks here as well. And now we can kind of interpolate our app ID. So we can actually just copy this app ID from up here and paste it in here. App ID, we can get the app key and paste it in here. Now normally you would use environment tools to protect these, because if you're pushing this code live, people are gonna be able to see your app key and app ID. Okay, so let's get going a bit with our HTML. So the first thing I'm actually needing here is a form. So we have that input and a button that we can submit something. So let's just create a form here, a normal form. We're gonna remove the action for now. And in here, I'm just gonna have an input with the type of text and also a button with the, I'm gonna add a type of subtype equal to submit to this. And this is gonna be a search. All right, so this is what we have. I'm also gonna add some classes to them. So on the form, I'm gonna add a class name. Make sure to use class name because that's a good practice to do in React. Again, we're in JavaScript here. So class would mean JavaScript class. And here, I'm just gonna add a search form. On the input, I'm gonna add a class name of search bar. And on the button, I'm gonna add a class name of search button. All right, hit save, perfect. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna open up my terminal. So up here, new terminal, and we can run npm start, and that's gonna open up our development server, npm start. Okay, there we go. We have our input here with the search. So let's try to make a request to this. I can actually close this up. That's fine. I'm going to remove this logo too because we don't need it. How do we make the request? Well, I haven't talked about this, but we can use something called useEffect. What is a useEffect, you might be wondering? Well, every time our page re-renders itself, useEffect is just a function that's going to run. And to illustrate that, let me kind of show you what's going on. I'm just going to go up here. I'm going to delete this, and I'm going to make some space here below this one, like so. And I'm going to add a useEffect. Now, this is not going to work, so we're going to have to import it up here in React. I'm going to add a comma. I'm going to say useEffect. And I'm also going to use state, because we're going to use this as well. And let's take a look. So we can use effect. This is a function, and it takes an arrow function as a parameter. Now in here, we can run anything. For now, I'm just going to console log effect has been run. All right, like so, perfect. Now let's kind of illustrate what's going on here. I'm gonna just add on this button for now, rather than saying search, I'm just gonna change it. Let's also create a state here. So just to illustrate what this useEffect does, I'm gonna create a const, I'm gonna say counter and set counter. And I'm just gonna set this equal to useState, and I'm gonna add the value of 0. So 0. And in here, rather than saying search, I'm gonna add counter. All right, so we're interpolating this and adding it here. So this is gonna say 0 because this is the value. And we can change the counter if we want by adding an on click on this. We can set it equal to. I'm gonna add some curly braces. And for now, I can just run the arrow function in here, actually. We don't need to create another function because this is going to be just one line of code. I can just set counter to counter plus 1. All right, this is just going to increment this by 1. So if we take a look, it says 0 up there. If I zoom in a bit, get rid, disappear. Are you for real? It's not going away. Oh my god, I'm getting trolled. There we go. If we click, it increments by 1. The problem is this is going to refresh because the form submits and yeah, this is a button on type submit. So that's not going to work. So let me get rid of this and we're going to have to add it somewhere else. Oh my goodness, today has been amazing. Let me get rid of this. But hey, this is what happens, man. This is what happens. So what's going on here? We're going to have to get rid of this whole on click. And I'm just going to add it outside somewhere. So I'm just getting rid of everything here. Outside this form, let's just create a H1 that says counter, like so. And here we're going to add an on click of an arrow function that says set counter to counter plus 1. All right, hit save. Now it's not going to refresh because it's not in the button. Let me re-add the button name here. Where were you, button? All right, let me close this up like so, and I'm going to reopen a button tag. Okay, and in here, I'm just going to add search again. Hit save. Okay, hit, it's going to increment, okay? One by one, one by one. Now look at what's going on in here. If I hit refresh, the first time our page renders, it's going to run that effect. Effect has run. So when our app renders the first time, this useEffect runs. And after every time something re-renders on our page, in this case this number, it's also going to run. So it runs every time our page re-renders. Now we can kind of modify this and we can run it at certain points. If I only want this to run once, so the first time the page gets rendered, I can add a comma here and this useEffect, and I can just add an empty set of arrays in here. Okay, this is the second argument of this useEffect. I'm gonna hit save, and now if I refresh, it only runs once. So when our application gets mounted, which is really good because we don't want to make that request 10 bajillion times. Okay, we want to make that request once, and when our page first loads, that's when we should fetch our data, so from our API. And now look, if this value changes, this effect doesn't really run more. Now we can also add in this argument the state that is gonna make it run. So maybe I just want one specific thing to make this useEffect run. So in here you can add counter, for example. And now only when counter changes, that's when the useEffect runs. So if you leave it empty, it's only gonna run once when the application mounts. And alternatively, you can add values here that's gonna make this useEffect run. So now, look, it's gonna run every time the counter is changing. So for now, let's just leave this empty. Hope that made sense. I'm gonna get rid of this H1 because we don't need it. I just kind of wanted to illustrate what this useEffect does. So in here now with this empty brackets here, we can make that request from the API. So what we would do is, I'm gonna get rid of this. We're gonna make an async await call here. Now the way we can do that is before this arrow function, we can just write async like so. And in here, we can run, actually, a simpler way to do it is rather than writing everything in here is to create a separate function. So down here, what we can do is we can create something const get recipes, all right? And this is gonna take care of just fetching all of our data. We can set this equal to an arrow function, like so. And in here, we can just add async before, all right? And now we can make asynchronous calls. And the way we can do that, we're gonna say const response. This is gonna be our response. Now this is not gonna arrive to us in like instantly, so we're gonna have to await it, okay? We're gonna add await, and Then we're gonna make our request, so a fetch. So we're gonna fetch the data from up here. I'm just gonna get everything from all the way up here and just cut it like so. I'm gonna get rid of this example request. Get rid of it. And we can get rid of this counter too. Like so, make everything a bit cleaner. We can fetch and we can add it in here. Whoops, what's happening? All right, perfect, close this up. And now once the response comes back, okay, we're gonna wait, we're gonna fetch, and once it comes back, we can say const data here. This is the final data. And we're gonna take this response and we're gonna create a JSON out of it. So we can add this JSON method on top of it. And this is just gonna format it in a way that we can work very easily with the data. All right, so that's all we need there. And we can actually console log the data in here. Now, I didn't write this correctly. Response dot JSON. And now again, this might take some time because we are requesting everything from an external API. Okay, so we don't know when this information comes back. So make sure you add a wait every time you have a promise. So some data that doesn't come back instantly, okay? So again, just any external request that you're fetching will have to be made with async await, or alternatively, you can use just normal promises with .then. This could have been written like fetch. Let me just copy kind of this, just kind of to give the example. You can write this like so, .then, and then you would get the response here, and then in here, then you write then, you would get the, well, actually here, you would get the data. So response like so, and then you would response.json. All right, you get the point. But this is a way simpler and nicer way to write everything, in my opinion. There we go, console log data. Let's see what we get. Hit save, and we should get, I'm gonna zoom out a bit, and we are not getting anything. Well, why are we not getting anything? Well, we need to add it to the useEffect. So this function is not running right now. So in this useEffect function, we can just write get recipes. All right, hit save. Let's take a look now. And still nothing. And there we go. We get the chicken. Everybody, let's open this up. As you can see, we have count, from, hits, and the thing we need is these hits. So we got the parameter chicken. If we open hits, these are all the recipes. We open up the 0 recipe. Look at that. We have the images. We have the number of calories. We have just so many information that we can take out of here and use it in our application. We also have ingredients. Look at that. You have everything you need. So you can actually build this out any way you want, just because you have so much information in this request. So the thing I'm actually gonna do is I'm just gonna pull out these hits from this request, because that's kind of all I need. So to do that, and again, please be in mind that they kind of limit you a bit. So make sure you don't control save a lot of times and make a ton of requests, because they're gonna stop you from making requests. And then it's gonna throw you an error. So if it throws you an error, just wait a minute and just try the request again and see if it works. If it doesn't, just leave it down in the comments, because it might be something else wrong. So I'm just gonna pull out this data.hits. Now I'm actually gonna go up here and create a state and set that state equal to whatever data comes back from this API. So let's go up here. I'm gonna create a const recipes. All right, I'm gonna put everything in that recipes, and I'm gonna add something called set recipes. Recipes. Okay, that's good. I'm gonna set this equal to a useState, and I'm just gonna add an empty array for now, because that's what I'm gonna have. I'm gonna have an array of objects. Look, it's an array of objects. Okay, so here we set this equal to useState, and that's good. And now Let's take a look here. In this get recipes, rather than just console logging this thing out, I'm gonna set recipes like so to the data.hits. All right, so I'm just setting everything to that data. Hit save. Okay, now everything, all of our recipes are in this state. So we can theoretically just go over the state and just visualize everything. So let's create an actual recipe component, and then we can map through it and we can output it in our app here. So let's just go here, create a new file, and I'm gonna create a recipe.js, like so. In our recipe.js, I'm gonna import React from React, like always. Perfect. And I'm just gonna go down here. I'm gonna create a const recipe, set it equal to an arrow function, like we did so far. Here, I'm just gonna return. I'm gonna set this to React really quickly. Return, and we're gonna return some JSX. So what do I want to have in this recipe? Well, I'm gonna create a div, and let's see here. I wanna have a title, so I'm gonna say title. I wanna have, what did we add to this? I'm gonna have a list with the ingredients, which I'm gonna add after. Let's just add a description. Is it a description? No, let's add a calories. So we're gonna display the calories, and we are also gonna add an image here, which I'm gonna leave blank for now. I'm gonna export default recipe. So I'm gonna export this recipe, hit save, and I'm gonna bring it in here. So all the way up here, I'm just gonna add a import recipe from recipe. /recipe. There we go. All right, so let's take a look at the information that we can pass down here. So for now, let's just take this recipe and output it to the screen. So again, remember that we have all the requests that we made are set in this recipes. So everything is stored in here from that API. So what I can do is I can get this recipes, I can scroll down here. After the form, I'm gonna add curly braces. I'm just gonna say recipes.map, because remember, this is an array, and I just wanna map over all the objects in this array. I'm just gonna add recipes.map, and the thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get a recipe, so each individual recipe from here, and rather than adding curly braces, I'm gonna add parentheses, because I wanna return some HTML or JSX. And in here, what I can do is I can just output the recipe. All right, hit save. Let's take a look. And as you can see, if you get this error, we finally got it. It means that I made too many requests to this API. So what we have to do is we have to actually wait a bit, and then it's just gonna work. So now I also have this random semicolon here, so let me get rid of this. And I'm also gonna console log up here the data.hits, and hopefully this is gonna work in just a bit. So if I hit Control Save, again, if I hit Control Save, it's gonna fetch that API again. So unfortunately, yeah, it's limited. So hit save, let's see, does it fetch it now? It actually fetched it. So as you can see here, we're getting output, that recipe component, it's getting outputted 10 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever, you can count to 10 times we have recipe. Now this is empty text, okay, it's just gonna output this generic title and calories that we added in here, and the recipe, see, it's just gonna output this, nothing interesting. But let's take a look at how we can add the title and the calories and everything from here. So as you can see, this is the state that we have. We just have a bunch of arrays that we mapped over. And in here, we have recipe again. So if we open up recipe, we can get something like URL, and there should be image here. So we can get the image by going into recipe.image here. We can also get the label, and we're also going to pull out the calories. So to access this, now we kind of named this recipe too in here. So to access this, we're going to create a title prop, set this equal to recipe.recipe, again, because we have recipe here. All right, that's why I added dot recipe. And then dot, and we're going to have to access the title, which is going to be the label. So in here, recipe.recipe.label. All right, that's going to be our title. We can also pull the calories, which is going to be set equal to recipe.recipe.calories. And lastly, let's pull out the image. It's going to be recipe.image here. Okay. Go back here. I'm going to actually make some space. This is going to be image equal to recipe.recipe.image. Hit save. So this is what we have. And in our recipe, rather than adding title, calories, and image, we can deconstructure everything by adding these curly braces. And here we can just pull the information from here. So we can pass down the props into the component here. So we can get the title, put it in here. We can get the calories, put it in here. And we can get the image and pull it in here. So essentially what we're doing is we're taking things from the state, right, from this state, and we're passing it down into the props and passing it down in this component. So we're just flowing down the information from this state in here. All right, that's all we're doing. We're passing down information from app component to the recipe component with the props. So in here. All right, so once we have it in here, we can replace this title with curly braces and title. We can change this calories, curly braces, calories. And we can replace the image source, not with strings, but with the image that we're getting from the prop. Hit save. Let's take a look. Let's hope it works. Oh, please, please. Wow, this takes quite a while. Oh, wow, look at that. Everything works nicely. Let's make this smaller a bit. And as you can see, we're getting the title, we're getting the number of calories, and we're getting the image as well. So, ooh, good. Things are working. Now we have an error here which says each child in the list should have a unique key prop. And what that means basically is that React is quite stupid and it needs a unique identifier for each of these items because it's going to make it render faster. Well, theoretically, what this is basically is, let's say we want to remove this item, okay? And if it has a specific key to it, then it's going to know that, hey, if I only need to remove this and I don't need to re-render everything else in here, because I have that unique key, all right? And if you don't have that, everything is gonna re-render in here. So all of these elements, I think so. I'm not 100% sure, so don't quote me on that. I might be wrong. But what we can do is we can go back to this recipe, and for now we can just add a key and set it's equal to. Now this needs to be something unique, but for now we can just set it equal to what our title has, and that's kind of gonna get rid of that error. So hit save, and as you can see, it gets rid of everything, of all those nasty errors. And yeah, look at that, we have our information. Now the cool thing would be is that we should be able to search for something in here, and then we would get the results based on that. How do we do that, Ed? Well, let's take a look at what we have here in our input. So for now, let's create a state for that search. So let's go all the way up here to where we have our state, and we can create something called const. We're going to add a search and a set search. We can set this equal to useState, like so. And I can just add an empty string, okay? And now, so this is an empty string with a search. I can go down here to the input and I can set the value of this input, curly braces again, with the thing that we have in our state, which is an empty string. So we don't have anything. All right, paste it in here, hit save. And now you're gonna see that if I try to write in here, it's not gonna work. Nothing's gonna work. Well, why doesn't this work? And I'm going crazy, and this is too complicated. Well, the reason why this doesn't work is because, hey, our search here is an empty string, so it's always gonna be an empty string. I can write whatever I want in here because the value is always gonna be set to this empty string, so it's nothing. So whatever I write, nothing's gonna happen. How can we fix that? Well, we can add an onChange event on it. So we used click before. OnChange basically means every time that input changes, so if I add a number or something or a value to it, it's gonna run. So we can add an onChange in here. I'm gonna add empty curly braces, and we can run a function. Now, what do we wanna run? Well, I can create a function in here. So right above our HTML. JSX, whatever, dude. Who cares? Const update search. All right, this is what I'm gonna create, and we're gonna get an event from this. I'm gonna run an arrow function, and basically the event is every time you run an onChange or a click, you're gonna get this event, and basically you can access the target from this event. So basically what we want to do here is we have this event, and all we need to do is set this search. Okay, so we need to modify this from the empty strings. So every time a user clicks in here and this onChange is going to run, we want to get that set search from our state. And what we want to do is we want to set it to e.target.value. So this is the value of the input. All right, and we can take this update search and pass it into this onChange. So now if we hit save, this is gonna update normally. And I'm actually gonna add a console log, and you're gonna see that. So in our const update search, I'm gonna console log. We're gonna console log these, what did I call it? Search. All right, so this is our input search. Hit F12, and as you can see, as I write, our state changes. Perfect. Now you might be wondering, oh, perfect, Ed. I can just add in this effect. Remember, I can just add from chicken here. We can add the input. All right, that's correct. We can just add the search from here and pass it in here. All right, and then we can just use this effect, and we can use it so it runs every time our search runs. So remember, we can get new recipes every time we hit on this button. So every time I hit, it's gonna update automatically. Correct. The problem is though, that every time we write one letter in here, it's gonna try to fetch this API. And that's quite crazy because we might write a lot and we can make like 10 or 20 requests without even writing anything. So that's not really good. We don't wanna fetch that much data, and since we're also limited with this API, it's just not a good idea. So what we want to do is I don't want to run the search here in this useEffect. Okay, I don't want to run it every second when we write in this input. And just to illustrate it, I'm just going to console log. Let's say we are fetching data. So if I add the search, now take a look in here. If I write, look, I don't know about you. Oh my God, look, we're getting the error. No, because I tried to fetch the data 10,000 times. So yeah, that was a bad idea. So I don't want to do that. So let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of the search as well. And what I want to do is I want to store this the way it is. And I actually want to create another state that only submits itself after we click the button. So after we click this search button, okay, I don't want this to go crazy for me. So only when I click the search, I want the thing to fetch the data for me. So how do we do that? Well, we can create another const, and I'm gonna say query for this. So this is the finished text that I wanna add in here, query, and I'm gonna add a set query to this, like so. I'm gonna set this equal to useState, and for now, I can add the default of chicken, all right? And I can actually change the chicken from here. I'm going to add a $sign in curly braces. I can set it to this query. All right, so now everything is still going to work the same. Now, what do I want to do is I want to go down here, all the way here. So below the update search or above, whatever you prefer, I'm going to add a const. I'm going to say get search, like so. This is going to be equal to, I'm going to have an event here as well. And what I want to do is I want to add this get search on the form submit. So whenever we submit this form, that's when I want to run this get search. Now the first thing I want to do is stop that page refresh, and we can do that by e.prevent default, like so. All right, perfect. Now what we can do is we can set query, which is up here. So this state, we can set this query equal to whatever we have in our search. Okay, so after we've written everything and we hit the button to submit, we can just get the finished text rather than when the user is writing, like it updating every second. So we can just set this equal to search. All right, so the finished updated value in our input. All right, perfect. So I think that's all we need for now. And on this form now, we can add an onSubmit. So after the form submits, we can set this equal to, we can run curly braces, get search. Okay. All right, one last thing we want to do, our useEffect now doesn't run only when the page first renders. Well, again, we had the problem if we add a search, then it's going to update every time. So that's why we created our query here, which is only going to update only after we hit the submit button. Okay, so we can add this query in this array now, and this is only going to run, again, only when we click on the submit button, because that's the only time this chicken value is going to change. Okay, hit save. Let's take a look. Let's see if it works. All right, so we're not getting any error messages. So now, as you can see, this is still getting typed out, but our useEffect doesn't run. Our useEffect only runs when our query changes, which is chicken right now. So here, let me just get rid of this and this console log. And look, if I write banana, hit search, it's gonna get all of our banana recipes. Nice, so everything works just fine. Now, a thing I want to do is I actually want to reset the input in here. I don't want this to remain in here. So the way you can do that is, and let's see, after you do the get search, you can set search back to empty strings. So our set search useState here. All right, hit save. Let's take a look. And voila, I'm gonna write, what should we write? Peanuts. Hit enter, and as you can see, it gets removed and everything loads up just fine. Now, before I go, let's quickly style this a bit, and let's also add the ingredients. So to actually get the ingredients too, we can access it in that API. If you check, we can add an how do I write ingredients? Ingredients, like so. You can set this equal to its own recipe.ingredients. Okay, and this is actually another array, so we have to loop through this. We are gonna have to go back to recipe in here, and we can pull that recipe. Oh, not recipe, ingredients, I apologize. Ingredients, like so. We can pull it in here, and here we can just create a list or something. So an unordered list or a ordered list. Let's go on ordered list for now. And in here we can just ingredients, we can loop over it with the map. And here ingredient, we can just loop over it and add normal parentheses, and we can just return an li from here. And I'm just gonna add ingredient text. All right, hit save. Let's take a look. And this should also pull in all the ingredients. Wow, look at the styling. That's actually superbly amazing. So we have everything pulled in here. Now to do some basic styling, let's go to we added everything in here in our app .js. I'm gonna get rid of everything in here in our app.css. I'm just gonna get the app. I'm gonna add a min height of 100 VH to this. And I'm actually gonna add a background gradient. If you want a cool gradient, you can go on web gradients in here and you can copy one. So let's copy, let's steal, because we love stealing things. I'm gonna steal this one and I'm gonna paste it in here. All right, that's one. Let's also adjust the search form here. I'm gonna add a min height of, let's go 10 VH, a display flex to this, justify content center, align item center. All right, let's go to the search bar. For this one, I want to add a width of 50%. I kind of want to make it long, almost half of the page. I'm going to get rid of the border of 0, none actually, and a padding of 10 pixels. Let's take a look at how that looks. Okay, so way better already. That looks kind of okay. Let's make the search button a bit nicer. I actually got lazy on this one, as I see here. I just added a color, a background of light coral. Oh my god, what am I doing with my life? So just a light coral background to this. I removed the border, none. I usually remove the border on this. A padding of, let's do 10 pixels and 20 pixels, and a color of white. All right, let's take a look. So something like that. Now this kind of doesn't match with the gradient we have, so I'm actually gonna copy the other one. Oh my goodness, let's copy and paste this one in here. And white, not the white-hole. All right, and for, let's see, what else do we have here? Let's also add everything in this map into a div. Let's create a div here and wrap everything in here, because I want to add display flex to all of these. So in here, I'm just gonna wrap it into a div, and I'm gonna add a class name of recipes to this. Class name of recipes. All right, hit save, and let's also get those recipes in here. And I just want to add a display flex to it, a justify content of space around, and let's also add a flex wrap of wrap. All right, so the content moves to another, if we make it smaller, it's gonna wrap around. Hit save. All right, looks way better. And let's also customize these. A cool thing we can do actually is we can create a CSS module. Now, Ed, what is a CSS module? It's a way that we can kind of encapsulate our CSS to a component. Ed, what are you talking about? You're still not making any sense. Okay, so what you can do, okay, so let's say we use search form in here, correct? Okay, then I want to use search form in here, in our recipe. Okay, well, it's gonna have the same style. Well, what the module allows us to do is, let's say I have a search form module, so a search for CSS module for our app. So search form is only gonna apply to our app.js. If I have another search form with the same exact name as in here in our recipe, so if I create another module for this one specifically, it's not gonna care that we have another one recipe. So it's kind of gonna only relate to that. So basically what we can have is we can just make simple classes again. We can have a class of title in here, like title in here, and it's not gonna care that we might have another class of title in here. So let's take a look on how we can make that. Just as an example, why not? Let's learn more about React. So we can just create a recipe.module.css. And now again, all the CSS classes that we write in here will only be related to this recipe, okay? So let's go back here into our recipe. I'm actually gonna show you how we can add this. I'm just gonna create a recipe class here. I'm gonna add a border radius of 10 pixels. A box shadow, let's add a box shadow, let's add a 0 pixels, 5 pixels, and a lot of shadow in here. Black, I actually don't like to leave it on black, I like to give it a grayish kind of look to it. Let's add a margin of 20 pixels, display flex, whoa, flex direction, the column. Just add some basic styling here. If you want to learn more about Flexbox, I do have a video on it, but I really don't want to take too long here. So yes, I do have it written down here. So if I'm looking here, that's why I'm cheating, okay? Line items, center, and a min width of 40%. Okay, so it's just some basic styling to each of these sections. All right, now how do we add the CSS modules in here? Well, we just import it, import, and we actually have to give it a name, style from, and then we can go to recipe dot, let's do dot slash recipe dot module dot CSS. And now in here, rather than adding class name of equal to like recipe, we need to add it like so. We need to add curly braces, style dot, and then the recipe. All right, hit save. Let's take a look. This should work. And as you can see, it works. So it adds the styles to it. Now I made a mistake here. For some reason, I don't want to add it to the H1. I actually want to add it to this whole div. So this is the way you can add custom made CSS for each individual section. Class name, we can just, why are you hating me today? All right, class name equal to, there we go. Hit save, and now it should look a bit more decent. Let's take a look. Come on, chickens, load up. There you go. We have some decent styling here. Now, I actually encourage you to just change these calories and make it a bit nicer. For the images, I just added a border radius to them. So I just made like an image class here and added a border radius of 50% and a width and a height of, I think they were the same height. So something like that. Hit save, and in here again, the way you can add it is class name equal to, and you can do style dot image. All right, so just create an image class, and that should work. So as you can see right there, it works, and we can actually kind of resize this, and it's kind of responsive. As you can see, it doesn't look that great, but it's still responsive, so that's good. I cannot believe I talked for almost an hour, but I made a ton of mistakes, so that's fine. Woo! Well, anyway, thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I'm gonna get my course, I'm gonna start filming my first course in a week, so hope you're excited for that. For now, I think I might just leave it on Patreon and then maybe a personal store, just because I can set my own prices and I can go way lower than most sites like Udemy. And Udemy also, I don't know, they had a lot of problems with stolen content, and I kind of looked into it, and they're quite sketchy, so I'm not sure if I like them. But again, I really want to set my first course for as low as $5, just to show you guys some appreciation for everything you've done to me so far. So thank you again. Please drop a sub, and you know the deal. You know what to do. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time. Go make some frozen pizza.